Alright, cool. So this video, I think the title is going to be Self-Realization is the End of Progression, the Hamster Wheel of Spirituality and Life. So you could even almost think of the hamster wheel. Obviously, I think the Buddhists, they have like the wheel of samsara or whatever, because just life in its essence, in its nature, is cyclical. And as I've explained many times, there's the absolute, and there is only one absolute, because the absolute is absolute. And yeah, so there's only that. So the only way of creation is for it to divide itself into many subparts and use them as units to create these amalgamations of forms, essentially, in display, even though it's all ultimately illusory and false, but partially and relatively true. And so, as I've explained, this is in a sense created from contrast of these infinite dualities. You could take the absolute and split it into infinite dualities, so many dualities, up and down, like infinite, all the chaos, right and wrongs, like so many dualities. It's just an amalgamation of infinite dualities, but it's all just that one same absolute getting split. That's why there's always just two. That's why it's all just opposites, because really the opposites are the same thing. And so the two that you have to think, it's almost like there's two poles, and I've explained this in other videos, but not I didn't really go fully into it. But there's two poles, and obviously I'm using some. It doesn't really matter what names I use. The names are arbitrary, but you could think of this as the Shiva and Shakti, or the Yin and Yang, or whatever the fuck. So because it is just the absolute and they get split into these two relative pieces or parts, or opposites, and then one is Shiva, which I've written down a list of both of the kind of two opposing energies, and you can kind of think of it, you could maybe ponder it a bit. So one side Shiva I would almost describe as the 0 point, nothingness, stillness, stability, order, truth, infinity, death, eternity. And the other is Shakti, fluctuation, oscillation, chaos, beauty, energy, vibration, finity, life, time, cyclical. So hear those two again. Shiva is stillness, the 0 point, stability, order, truth, infinity, death, eternity, or space. And Shakti is fluctuation, oscillation, chaos, beauty, energy, vibration, finity, life, time, cyclical. So it's like, if you look at any kind of grid, it's made out of coordinates, these pieces. When people are speaking in sentences, they're saying, what is your point? What is the point? What does that mean? It's the point. Just look at dimensions from the 0 dimension. It starts from a point, then 1, then 2, then 3. It's all from a point. Everything onto itself, this point, the 0 point, that's everything. And as I've explained many times, because there's infinite coordinates in the field, in the quantum field, like it's infinite, and there is no center because there's no edge, there's no bounds. So any point you take is the center because there is no center. So you could take that center, like this body could, your mind, this is why it feels like to everyone they're in the center, because there is no center. Everywhere you go is the center. You can't escape the center. So this is the 0 point, the anchor, truth. the thing that's always been there. You think that you are this body, like I'm this person. No, like it's just truth. That's the only thing that's like your body's changed, everything's changed, your thoughts have changed. It's just truth that remains. So that's the Shiva. So stillness, stability, order, truth, infinity, death, eternity. And then Shakti, which is the opposite, is fluctuation, oscillation, chaos, beauty, energy, vibration, infinity, life, time, cyclical. Those are the two. And you could almost think of it as there's the point, like, and this is why I keep on speaking about the X, X, Y, and how. Think about every form that gets created has a center of gravity and like a center point. It's like all forms are around a point, and it could be in crazy amalgamations, but it always has to have, it's expanded out of nothing into this particular, and then like every form, just look at any form, it has a center. Like it might be difficult to define, but look, like this has a center. Like everything has a center. The nucleus, the sun, like everything. That's why they called it. And a lot of religion is based on also based on the celestial bodies, and the Jesus and all these prophets are also in certain sense like reference for the sun. And it's literally just, it's just everything revolves around you. You're it. The world revolves around you. No matter where you go, there's you and the world. You are Shiva, the self, truth. The world is the oscillation, the chaos, the beauty. This is the two poles. It's only two, and in the end, it's one, because that's just the division of that. And so it's really just one, which gets split into two, but really then it's three, because the three is almost like this, the thing that keeps it centered, and then there's the two poles, and then there's just the center, and really it's just one. But that's kind of how it oscillates. And the Shakti and the world, like it seems really chaotic, and it is. Like the essence, as I said, of Shakti is chaotic, but it can never go like really degrade into some ultimate hellscape. Like it may seem bad and so on, but really you can tell, like, yes, no matter how bad it is, like you're still not, like if you experience certain states of consciousness, you know, like this is still very stable. Like it's life can be fucked up, like it can be very fucked up, but it's still stable, like, if you get what I'm saying. And that's because it's anchored in the Shiva and the truth. Like it can oscillate really wildly, but it's almost like balanced in the scale, because it is in the end always itself. It can only appear to be like what it's not. And even though, so speaking like about humans trying to become enlightened or trying to become realized, even though it's true what some teachers say, that everyone in a sense is already enlightened, everyone's already it, you're already the truth, like that's true. But even though that's the case, I wouldn't really say that's enlightenment or realization, because it's basically truth has to become aware that it is the truth for it to be realized. Whereas what we refer to as an unenlightened person, so to speak, is even though they are the truth, they're basically completely identified with the Shakti and the oscillations. They're lost in the world, in the dream. They don't even know about their base, if you get what I'm saying. They just, like, this is why my analogy, one of my favorite ones, is like, you could think of the clock. And you see like that 0 point that it's anchored to, and then it goes like this, and then like people are identified with this. So as it's progressing, it seems like you're progressing and you're along for the ride and you're changing, but really you're just the center point that it's like anchored to. And you just, even though because you have layers, your visible self is changing, but your invisible self, your soul or whatever you think it is, that invisible self, like it never changes. It never has. It's always been there. It's always the same. no matter the circumstance, no matter how severe it seems on the outside, so to speak. Um, and yeah, so the whole thing is with life or in the dream or any kind of spiritual journey, there's always a progression, there's always a direction, because really in the absolute is in eternity. Like the 0 point, when you're at a point and it has everything unto itself, there's no need for direction because there's everything unto itself. So we're so used to being programmed in 3D thinking where we're kind of thinking everything has like momentum and like is being affected by like the laws of physics from the outside and all of this kind of stuff. But really, that's just because our micro selves, our visible human construct selves, are subject to that, and we're inside of that from the human sense reference. But the absolute, like all of those, the laws of physics and all of that is already inside of the absolute. Like it's lower, it's secondary, it's not even fundamental. So like the absolute is not subject to those. So like it doesn't need to it doesn't need to move. It's absolutely stagnant and still and stable. That's what I'm saying. Whereas the oscillation, the life, or the spiritual journey where you're trying to get hit, like everyone thinks they're going on a spiritual journey and getting to zero, getting closer to zero, but you're still just oscillating, still just changing. You're moving from one like a stark, dense like dream to a slightly lesser dense dream, but still in the dream. And you think you're progressing, getting to zero, but you're still oscillating, and you're still in like substantiality and like the loss and gain and all of that kind of stuff. Whereas, in a sense, self-realization, it is the end of progression. It's a full stop, and people don't like that. And I'm not saying that life won't necessarily continue on from that moment for the human construct that the self is kind of incarnated in that particular time. But for the actual self, like it's just in completion at that point, and it's only your kind of visible self or your artificial avatar that you're kind of controlling in this incarnation, which appears to be you, but it's not really you. Like only that kind of changes and progresses. And obviously there's levels to that still, and that will keep on progressing forever. But then once you kind of see the nature of the relative plane and how it's necessarily always incomplete because it's just all infinite. Like the absolute is infinite, so no matter how many finite frames there are, it just will never get to the end. It's just nature is incompleteness itself. So when you understand that, there's no point in trying to progress higher and higher and higher and infinitely higher and higher. Like you can do it for fun, but like you're always in the same place. Like it's just it's different experientially. Like you just start to realize that it's all like all there is the true self, which is a 0 point. It's infinitely conscious of everything. It's just there. It's true, absolute. And then you could think of the fluctuations, which is just kind of, it's just kind of like playing out the potentials of the because the field or the 0 point has infinite potential because it's nothing, and zero and infinity are the same. And then the world in a finite form, it could happen in a small or large, or and depending on the scale, like it could do any kinds of scales, infinite scales, and any kinds of forms, and it can oscillate, and that form will arise, or many infinite forms will arise, and then they will collapse and change, and it's always shape shifting. So yeah, it's a bit self contradictory, but even though the self was always the self, and the absolute was always absolute, and the truth was always true, as I said, consciousness was always conscious. But and that's the cosmic joke, is that it's a paradox. It doesn't make sense. It's not physical. like even if I say it to you, it's not gonna make sense. But um, but it's still true because even though the truth was always true, and because eternity was always eternal, everything was always there. Every infinity was always infinite because everything is absolute and the truth is true. So everything is just. But the cosmic dream is like the oscillation is the appearance that you went on the journey. But see, and that's why everything is cyclical. Even time we just measure by cycles because it's actually nowhere and it's going nowhere. It's just always just an oscillation. You can oscillate that way or that way, make the infinity symbol into the plus and to the minus. It doesn't matter where you oscillate at, how far and how many cycles and how long it was and the scale or whatever. Like it's just always just the 0 point. It can never not be that. Um, and so life, so to speak, the cycle of life and death, or you know what I'm saying, today and tomorrow and like whatever, all of these cycles, um, really there's no progression. You're actually not progressing. It's just only the illusion of progression. Like it will seem that, oh yes, like I'm here today and yesterday like I was there and I'm here today and then tomorrow I'm gonna be over there. But no, it's literally just like a it's like a loop and then it's only the appearance of a change. But see, because this is so constant and it's always the same, the antithesis is always change. So it's like kind of like the poles are like sameness and difference. And that's why it's chaotic. It's like this is complete order because it's always itself, always completely stable. And then the world, it just is always different. It can never be the same. You'll never experience the same frame of consciousness twice, even though it's infinite. People have this theory of, oh, because it's infinite, then you're going to experience the same frame infinite times. No, that would be like a finite infinity where you're trapped in a box. Like it's so infinite, it will just keep on going forever like that way. Like even though it's going forever that way or forever that way, it's just a point. It's just not even moving because the field is infinite. So do you start to get it now? Like that's really infinity. Like, so life and the spiritual journey is always a progression, always a direction. It's always literally, but it's in eternity. So really, there's no time like there. And when you actually self-realize the cosmic joke, you realize, oh, I was really never alive. That like that, because God, in a sense, in the dream has to incarnate, realize, and then be exactly the opposite of itself to experience all of that, and then like kind of come back to itself, and then only then like only even though it always was itself, only when it's experienced not being itself and return to being itself can it be itself and now know itself, rather than just being itself, or rather than being itself and not knowing that it is itself. Now it is itself and it knows itself. So it has to kind of go through that cycle, but only at that moment will it realize that cycle actually never happened. It only appeared to happen. But you can't just say that whilst you're in the cycle and all that. You can't say, oh, this is just like an imagination. Like, no, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. Um, so you have to kind of think, because really not time and space doesn't exist. It's just an infinite field. All there are just points of references, one point of reference and another point of reference. And you might think that you're here now, as you're finding that thing, I'm here now in England in 2024, whatever, I'm here now, and I want to be here in 2028. I want to have this much amount of money in this country, living in my villa and whatever. Or I'm here now and I'm 50% enlightened, but I want to become 100% enlightened in the future by doing more meditation practice. Like, or or I'm here now and I'm already awakened, but my own conditionings are blocking it. So I just need to peel off more awakened so I can just like get more to where I already am. Like, see, like there's all kinds of ways that the ego tries to like think, and then you think you're always trying to get to nothing, but you're always still going away. Like by definition, the moment you choose a direction, you try and do that practice or that practice, or go that way or that way. I'm going to choose Buddhism, or yoga or psychedelics or meditation or listen to this guru or that guru. He's got the truth. He's got the truth. And there's already always a direction. You're already always going away. So in a sense, what some of these gurus, they kind of know this and they keep on sending you everywhere where it's not until you just exhaust yourself and just collapse into just pure stillness again. So there's one way where you can kind of exhaust it by going everywhere it's not until it just collapses and exhausts its energy, because all energy is in a sense finite again, because remember, like it's just a deviation away from the truth. Only the truth is absolute and infinite. Like the things are always kind of finite. So even though there's infinite finitudes, the finitudes themselves are finite, if you get what I'm saying. Like the appearances, they only appear once, like they're only there for a certain time, they're only a particular form. So yeah, it's literally this was basically all my notes. And like, see, from point A, like this is where you are now, where you think you are, which is really just nowhere, and it's just one point of reference of nothing. And then B, really these are the same points, but you don't know that. For the sake of the illusion, this is how the world gets created. Creates these imaginary like spaces, and then this is where you are now, and you want to get there. And this is arbitrary. It could be any goal, $1 million, the president, enlightened guru, like whatever the fuck you think, right? And then wherever you are now, or you think you are now, and then you want to get there. And then this discrepancy, even though this is in eternity and there's really no gap, that supposed gap, that's the story, that's the progression, that's the strife, the loss and the gain, the sine wave, all the things that supposedly happened, you know what I'm saying, until you got there. But really, in the end, when you really look at it, when you get that thing that you wanted, how many times have you got that thing you wanted? And then you were still there, you were still incomplete, and you wanted C, and then you wanted D, and then you wanted E, and then you wanted so on and so forth. So that's basically the thing. You have to realize one thing is always a direction, and it's always a direction away from where it already is. That's like the outwards energy, the repulsive energy, kind of like, and then there's always like, yeah, just the stable energy, which is collapsed onto itself. It's kind of like an explosion and an implosion, explosion and an implosion. And see, every explosion happens from a point. Again, so this is even like, that's why I would say the universe is literally just a big bang, a big crunch, infinite times, and that's God breathing. As I was explaining, and that I think it was a cosmic joke. One of those videos, absolute truth. Obviously, that's speculation, but it doesn't really matter what the fuck it is. Like, it's just an appearance. It's just absolute. That's why in the end, everything is just itself. So I've explained this a lot in the other videos, but I want you to make a distinction between enlightenment and self-realization. Even though all of these are also just terms and not really things like a box or something that exists out there like that. So yeah, now your mind's thinking, oh, self-realization, what's that? Like, as if it's a thing, like, or something like that. Like, no, it's not that, but we have to use language. And there's not really such a thing as like an enlightened, but that person's really enlightened and he's 90% and he's 77% and all, like, it's not really like that, if you get what I'm saying. However, yeah, it's just literally only truth, and then it's just about how much that incarnation as a human, so to speak, like is aware of their own absoluteness and their own like truthness, like how true they are, how much of themselves they are, if you get what I'm saying. And enlightenment, so to speak. So like, there's just kind of really, there's not unenlightened people, so, but yes, let's just kind of just to be able to communicate. There's like unenlightened people, and then there's people trying to get enlightened, and then they're trying to understand intellectually, or they're doing practices and so on and so forth, and then they're always seeking. And literally, I was watching some video of like one person, and they was enlightened, but then they were speaking to someone else. I'm not sure if that person was self-realized, but they was enlightened, and probably might be self-realized, but then it doesn't really matter. Like, obviously it does, but I respect anyone who's even at least gotten enlightened. Like, that's already just an incredible feat. And then the person they were speaking to was very honest and authentic as well. And then they were just saying how like they was keep on trying to be okay with the moment, trying to stop trying, and like trying to do all this stuff, and then realizing that it was impossible for them to stop. And then it's just like all of this kind of like stuff. And then I kind of remember those times as well, and even the way they was, and it was just making me think like, yeah, it's literally just that kind of outwards energy, always trying, it's that incompleteness that's always trying to complete itself, but it never will. It's always the direction. Like there's always a goal. There's always a distance between you and your goal, you and your destination, and the discrepancy, and like getting from there to there, that's the journey, that's life, that's the story. So everything is a story. It has the beginning, where you are now, an end, where you want to be, and then the present moment, which is the story, which is your progression to that moment. Literally, every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Those are the three dimensions. Yesterday, tomorrow, and now. And really, now is the only one. Yesterday happens now. Tomorrow will happen now. Now is absolute, really. So, like, there's really just the absolute and like the two opposites, which are both wrong. But those both opposites are equal, like opposite to each other. But they're both wrong. But they're both kind of like a split of the truth. And then people think either that one's right or that one's right. Like they'll think that one's absolutely right. Only positives right, or only negatives right, or whatever. But both of them, Jesus and the devil, they're both wrong in the end. They're both not the absolute, but they're just parts of the absolute. It's like the yin and yang, when people think it's like the black and the white, but it's the circle. It's the circle. That's really the absolute. So yeah, and then like the person, like they're trying to progress, they like always going to the direction, and then if you actually get enlightened, then there's like kind of, as I said, because there's almost like levels, like layers of the self. Really, there's not, but like in the dream, at least there are, and then it's kind of like each of those levels are getting peeled off, like, and you're just kind of becoming more and more direct to the self. Like you can imagine it's just the point, and then it just creates infinite layers out, and like the less enlightened you are, you're identifying with like this outer layer thing, this shadow thing, which like is your, like could be your body. You think like your body's so close to you, but really your body's like already like so far away from you. Like there's already so many subtler levels in between, like that, if you get what I'm saying. You're kind of peeling off your body, your mind, your like, even there's like subtler things in your mind, like certain energies and certain, and until it just like just a void. And then yeah, and in a sense, yeah, like so yeah, and I've explained this in many other videos, so if you watch my earlier videos you understand, but I'm just going to reiterate it again. And then yeah, so there's just the absolute, and then the truth, which has the capacity for consciousness, which is its ability to become self-aware and self-recognize its truth, itself as being true. The true recognizes itself as being true through consciousness, which is conscious. And that's kind of like enlightenment. Yes, enlightenment is, in a sense, an incarnate, like a human. Like when we're speaking about a human getting enlightened, we're saying a human is just a subsection of the self. It's just a finitude of the infinity. So it's just a subsection of the self, but it is the self, but it's just a subsection of the self, which now realizes that it's not the subsection, and people will try to say that they now know that they're the whole thing, but they only kind of know that still as an idea. Like they really do know that they're not the subsection now, but they're still not really, like, they know everything that they're not, but they don't know what they are now. And then they've just become really loosey-goosey about that and saying nothingness and consciousness or whatever. Like, it's just kind of like a fill in the blank, which is true, is just kind of a void. But still, they, like, you can actually get to self-realization, which a lot of the enlightened people haven't gotten to yet. But so there's that. But then only from enlightenment can you even get self-realized. You have to know everything that you're not the human, not the mind, so on and so forth, before you can even get to that point. And then once you've kind of gotten there, then you can get self-realization when you realize, yes, I am myself. What am I? I am myself, of course. But I'm not speaking about the human or your name, Nathaniel, or your mind, your thoughts. Any thought you've ever had, you could be not thinking, you'll still be yourself. You could be conscious or not conscious, you would still be yourself. You could be alive or dead, you would still be yourself. You could be like any condition, you would still be yourself because you are just yourself. That's what you are. And there's nothing other than yourself that you can like use as a reference for you, because it's only you. Only you exist. There's only one you. That's existence, uniqueness. So every form is unique unto itself. Every form is in itself. So a causal self-created. Every form creates itself, but that's only possible because truth, which is the absolute, is true. That's like the ultimate kind of like abode for everything else to do its own thing. Hands off the real infinite love. It will allow anything to be what it is because it's true and it's right, and it's just anything that happens is what was supposed to happen because it's true. So that's why no action is really required. And yeah, so really like life is basically just one level of progression, which could be physical. So like trying to go from single to in a relationship, trying to be in a relationship to being married, and being married to having kids, and having kids to having a house, and having a house to going on holidays. So like that's basically life, infinite progressions and different levels, just higher levels and higher levels. And then the same with spirituality, even though spirituality is in a sense just life or just a subsection of life or whatever the fuck. And then it's more just like realizing that I'm not the body, realizing that I'm not the mind, realizing that I'm not this, realizing that I'm not that. And then even you take the negation to absolute levels, and the negation negates itself until there is only the self. And then that's when you realize self-realization. You realize I am myself. When you're saying that, no, not the body, not, oh, yes, I'm Nathaniel. So he is saying, yes, I am just Nathaniel. I am just Sam. I am just Jack. I have always been Jack. He's just saying I'm my body, right? No, that's not what I'm saying. But you are still yourself, absolutely. I am myself. I am myself, and I always have been, and I can never not be myself, because that's what I am. I am myself. And the truth can never not be true, because the truth is true. And there could never even be such a thing as falsehood. Falsehood could never arise because it's false. By definition, that's what it is. And because everything is just truth, is absolute, it's made out of itself. Truth is the only thing there is. So if it's not true, then it's not true. It's just complete order. It just makes sense. One is equal to one. Whereas in the relative plane, in the devil's play, one is equal to -1, or one is equal to whatever. And then that's how it just creates the whole Maya and the fluctuations and the chaos. And that's not wrong, but that's like what that is, if you get what I'm saying. And yeah, to create a world, you need the two poles. But in the absolute is just the two merging of these, and it really is just the same thing. And then there's no dualities, no anything at that point. It's just the end of the progression, and your human body can like keep on getting like downloads and whatever. You can keep on realizing things a bit more, but like there's just no direction anymore. Like if in your life energies, like it's just so onto itself. It's just so stable. Like you're in pure equanimity, pure samadhi. Like it's just like there's no progression after that. You realize every progression is just a suggestion, because this is so stable. Everything else that arises, all it is, to different degrees, is a suggestion of change, a suggestion of progression that will never go away. No matter how like enlightened you are, there will always be a suggestion of progression, like a suggestion of a journey, like in that direction, a higher level. Like there will always be that suggestion, but then you always like at this point you really realize like no matter how far you go right or left, like it's just no progression. Like it's just always onto itself, and that's not a bad thing. It's almost happy. You kind of collapse into it and just rest in stillness and symmetry, in victory, and you realize there's nothing to defend anymore. Like I don't need to strive to survive, and I don't need to protect this self-image and that self-image. Anything that's true stands on its own. I don't even need to vouch for this, even though it's contradictory because I'm making videos, but I'm just making this for fun, for its own sake. It's fun for me to make videos. I got to the point that obviously it's good if people get. I don't even care if it gets views or whatever. I'm just doing this for fun. I'm just doing this for fun, literally. That's it, and that's what fun is: doing things for its own like nature, its own sake, not to get any other thing. So, yeah. So as long as you're still And I know this because from my own self experience. And I remember before I got enlightened, like trying to thinking, oh, what it's gonna be like, and all this thing. And that was one of the things that that person in the video was saying. Oh, what was it gonna be like? Did you have to try and force to stop it? Did you have to try and this or that? Like though, from that point of view, it seems like the right questions to ask. But these are almost like when you're really there, these questions, like there's no questions. Like it's just something else. um, Anything else? Let's see. I guess yeah. I'm just gonna just freestyle from now. Really. Yeah. The spiritual journey is a strange one. It's really a strange one. Um, but yeah, I don't really know if there's like one particular method, one particular way, one particular path. Like, but really, the main thing is you have to realize that you already are at your destination. That's the main thing of this video. You're already at your destination. Self realization is realizing that you are the point. You yourself are your own point. You exist to exist. Like you are your own point. There's nothing other reason. It's just, and that's really kind of where you get the indifference to whether it arises or not, because it doesn't really matter. It's all the same. It's all equivalent to itself. Whether you exist, whether you don't exist, whether you're alive, whether you're not alive, whether you're right, whether you're wrong, like it's still that. It's still that. It's unconditional. You can't lose. You can only appear to lose, and it may seem to others like you've lost, and they will label you a loser, but you've won ultimately. So yeah, man, I really suggest people like do everything you want to do in your life, fulfill your desires as much as you can, enjoy them to the extent you can enjoy them. If you start to become conscious enough that it's not fulfilling you and that you always want more, and then you want something else or enlightenment or something, and then you can kind of go on that journey as well. But then realize all that seeking, and then you're necessarily gonna have to seek anyway. But because even though you're there, you're not. You don't know you're there, so you have to kind of at least seek to some degree. But then you're gonna go through all of that, and burn through all of that, which may take years and so on. But it has to kind of just fall off naturally. It has to kind of only you can choose to do it. It has to kind of happen by itself, by its own will. Can't be kind of caused by a particular condition, because it's unconditional. Like its actual nature in the first place is unconditional. So you have to kind of just come to an unconditional surrender to a certain degree. Um, to truth. That's when you realize truth is impersonal. There's nothing personal about it. Um, well, in the end, it's neither personal or impersonal, but really, I'd almost say it's more impersonal. Like you have to kind of see. That's why negation and not this, not that, the neti neti method is so powerful, because when you do realize it, like it's you're neither alive nor dead. Like when you really think about what is alive just doesn't exist. Like there's only things matter. Like if you think it's only matter or it's only mind, it doesn't matter. Like really, there can't be mind and matter. No, there can't be both. It's either just mind or matter. So if it's just matter, then there's no such thing as mind. And if there's mind, then there's no such thing. Matter is just an appearance, an illusion. So nothing is arising from something else. Like one thing can't create another thing. Two things, like for them to exist, they have to be completely separate. Like they can't even, like for things to even be transacting, that means already that they in a sense already co-linked, and they already are itself. Like the world can only interact with itself because it is the world. Like it is interacting with itself. You can't interact with anything other than yourself. And that's when kind of enlightened people say, "Oh, realizing that you're everything, realizing, you know what I'm saying, that you're the universe and so on." Because you really, like, could you see the universe if you wasn't the universe? Like, there's not real. So literally, it's neither personal. Like the world, like actually look at it. Like look around. Like things are happening. It's impersonal. Like happening without you. It's happening, and yet it's so. And but it's so you could either say it's impersonal and personal, but then that also negates each other to where it's neither personal or impersonal. So that's why it's so perfect. Like it's the perfect balance because it's like really it is happening to you. It seems to happen to you. The world seems to revolve around you, but then the world is completely impersonal to you. Like those are the two exact poles. If you get what I'm saying, it's like the world is completely impersonal. Everything is out of your control. It's complete chaos. All you have control over is yourself, your own self, because that's really the only thing that is. Um, but your own self doesn't have any particular form. It's only like form is truth. Like it's just only that it's true. That's all that that's the only thing that it has. It's just true. It's not true that it's that way or that it's this way because your mind already is a dualistic mind. So when I say it's true, you're always it's true that it's what way? That it's physical, that's spiritual, that's mental. No, like not anything, not any particular way. It's just true. Full stop. That's basically what I'm saying. That's self-realization, realizing truth is true. Full stop. Existence exists. Full stop. I am myself. Full stop. Nothing else. There's no room for certainty. There's no room for chaos. Like already that room, that gap, that space, that bit of uncertainty. That's where the world, like everything, the oscillations happen, the uncertainty, the probability. Like here, there's no probability. It's just complete. Like, it's just that. It is itself. No, like question about this. How fast? No. Full stop. That's basically what it is. And it won't be like just a mental thing or just a physical. Like it will be actual. It will be way deeper than that. It will just be on the deepest, on the highest and lowest level simultaneously at the same time. There won't be like anything outside of it. That's what I'm saying. You can't escape it. Like that's one of the craziest things as well. Like at certain times, like it's, obviously I'm always aware of it, but then certain times it'll just dawn on me again to like there is no opposite to this. There's no other way it could be. You could never escape this. Like everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be, and not even in some like make it sound nice kind of way. Like genuinely, why everything happens is because that was just the most true thing. That's the only reason why that was the truest thing. That's why it happened. The truth like doesn't really have anything to do with being nice. That's in a sense why it kind of feels impersonal to some degree. But then obviously it's also personal because it has to always be happening to a subject, supposedly. But yeah, I guess that's enough of that.